Let's make sure that I actually have sound today. Testing, testing, 1, 2, testing, testing. It looks like I have sound. Okay, cool. Hey guys, it's Ray, and we are streaming blacksmithing today. Today we are going to do or turn this piece, or 4-inch long piece of 5/8 inch stock into a hook. I think we're gonna put a leaf like we've been making for the last couple days on the end of it. And yeah, so it's going to be a J hook. So we'll have a leaf on the one end and a J on the other. So a couple of things. Well, first I'm going to start up the forge, and then we'll get into some housekeeping. That's what I've been calling it, housekeeping. Stole it from Jen and Aliona. All right, cool. Let's start up this forge. Okay. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our metal in the forge. And then we will start doing our housekeeping. Talking about what we've been up to and what we're going to be up to. All right, well, that heats up. All right, so like I said, today we're going to make a J hook with a leaf on the end. So it is a leaf hook, I guess. We're going to draw out a taper on the back or on the bottom so that we can turn the hook or turn turn it into a hook. And we're gonna try and do as much close-up and instruction as we can get. And there's that. So over the last week, we got some followers. So I want to thank everybody who followed Stacy L. Carter, B. Brooklyn Blades, and Yankee Axe. Thank you so much for those follows. I greatly appreciate that. And I did thank you last Friday, but unfortunately I had accidentally I had muted myself. So I have the audio that I recorded on my microphone, but I do not have the audio on the stream VOD itself. So I will try to, or when I'm making the video about making the leaves, I'll have audio, but the VOD if you go back and watch the VOD, I don't have any audio there. I've given myself kind of a obstacle course, it looks like, with my propane tanks. So I need to clean that up because tripping hazards are the worst part or one of the most dangerous parts of being in a blacksmith shop. Any shop really, tripping hazards, they're very prevalent. So it's looking like TikTok is going the way of the dinosaur and going to be banned in the United States and going extinct. So, or at least in the US. So I will not be joining that app. And there are a couple new apps that people are talking about replacing TikTok with. I am not sure which one is going to stick, so I'll probably try and join as many of those as possible once I have a few videos under my belt. And hopefully you guys will see me down there when I join, and when I post some videos. And I will definitely put my links in the bio of the stream, so you'll be able to look at those when they are up and active. So I am still doing some editing on a crossbeam hammer video, and I'm starting the editing on doing a leaf tutorial video. So look forward to those within the next week to 2. I'm still like learning how to use editing softwares and like just editing in general. I'm also very new to video or like recording myself, so I'm doing the best I can, but it's a little bit slow going. Just learning the program, how it functions, and making it all or putting it all together for you guys. So some of it may end up being voiceover, some of it may end up being, more beauty shots and stuff like that. Hopefully we get something informative and interesting to view. Let's see. So today, it's really actually kind of warm. Outside, it's like getting close to 60 degrees, so the shop itself has retained a little bit of the cold for the past couple days, so it's a little colder in here, but outside it's really, really warm. So as we start working with the forge, I will probably end up shedding the sweatshirt. But yeah, today's been warm enough that I don't actually need my winter coat, which is really, really good. Today, I think we are probably actually, instead of using the cross peen hammer today, we'll probably use the 2-pound forging and rounding hammer. And I will be putting together a video about that piece within the next few. And at some point, I would like to film a shop tour. So I'm not sure when that will happen. I'm not sure I will stream it, but I will definitely make a video of a shop tour. Need to clean up a little bit, probably this weekend, because I need to spend Tuesday and Thursday editing. So hopefully this weekend, maybe we can do a shop tour. And if that's the case, we can get a better camera so you guys can see a little bit higher quality of the shop. Let's see. It would be nice to do that relatively soon so you guys can see all the equipment that we're working with. Let's see. Next week, we will be streaming on Monday for sure. On Wednesday, we will not be streaming because I'll be out of town for Christmas. And then on Friday, it's kind of iffy on whether or not I will be streaming or not. We will be getting home on Thursday from going out of town, and depending on what time we get home as to, how I'll be feeling on Friday. So, look forward to Monday's stream, but Wednesday and Friday of next week, we probably will not be streaming. As far as the week of New Year's, I should be streaming it all at our normal time. We're not going out of town. We don't really celebrate New Year's. So yeah, we'll pretty much be here, and I'll probably be streaming even on New Year's Day. We'll see how that goes. I will try and keep you updated if anything changes, because we've got the holidays in there. I will know by Monday if anything changes through the new year. Let's see. Our forge is all nice and heated, but we're still waiting on our metal to finish heating. From there, we will bring the camera over to the close-up shot, and I will start by showing you I think we'll start with a big old leaf at the top, and then we're going to, after we've got a leaf that functions, then we'll go back down to making the J hook. So we'll draw out that material, maybe flatten out some of the long section underneath of the leaf, so we've got a section to put a nail in, or a screw, or however you're fastening it to the wall. that should be that. All right, so here we go to the close-up. We've got a little bit of heat going, just enough to work. All right, and let's see. Have I given myself enough space on that shot? You can see both sides of the anvil. I think that's pretty good. All right. So because I'm using the smaller hammer, it's going to take us a little bit longer to create that pyramidal shape. We are also using a much thicker piece of material, so it'll probably take us a few heats. I'm still less comfortable with this angle, and I'm afraid that I'm going to hit the camera, so I may end up shifting for this next heat, so that I know for sure. I might shift you back a little bit so I know for sure that I'm not going to hit the camera. All right, so we've got a little bit of movement. Like I said, not nearly as much as we wanted because, like I said, the 5/8" stock is a lot thicker than the 1/4" stock that we've been working on before. If you want a comparison, yeah, this one is the 1/4" stock, and this one's the 5/8. So it's much thicker. We're getting a lot less movement, but what we're doing is we're going to put a leaf onto the tip of this here, and then we are going to draw out the back in a taper so we can bend it into a J hook. And that is our project for the day. So back in the fire we go. And this is a really classic hook, the leaf hook. It is a hook that a lot of beginners start with. Because it's the basic leaf shape, and then you just add a little bit more complexity to it by adding that J hook in there. So we are using the tongs that we made prior to the last project. But we will probably be moving to our new tongs that we made last project once we finish our leaf. A little bit of a lazier day. I think I'm a little bit tired today. The weekend was pretty exhausting. We're still doing some Christmas shopping, so yeah, I did a lot of shopping on Saturday and Sunday, so I'm a little tired, but it should be all right. We'll be good. I may end up having to cut the stream a little bit short if I get too exhausted, but that shouldn't be an issue. I should just be able to stream the 2 hours. I may just end up sitting a little bit further than, or a little bit more than I have in the past couple streams. How is our forge doing? I think we're doing pretty well. It's nice and heated in there. So yeah, like I said, I'm working on trying to get to the point where I can get a second camera in. So I've got this wide shot, and we're going to keep using a wide shot like this. And then I'd like to get a second camera in there so that we can, you can see like when the metal is in the forge, you might be able to see, or like I'll bring the camera over and you'll be able to see the forge and inside of it and all the heat. And then you'll be able to move to a detail of we'll be able to move that camera to a detail of the anvil and detail of the press over there when we are working over there. For the first few, for the first few projects that we're going to do, or for the first several projects we're going to do, I am trying to hand forge them for you guys so that you guys, I can show you that you don't need all of the fancy equipment that I have. You can actually start with the bare minimum. As long as you have just a piece of metal, a bigger piece of metal like this one that I have as my tool rest, or like just any sort of piece of metal, like just a piece of scrap like this one, or anything like that. That's all you really need. Even just a hammerhead as an anvil, anything to heat up your metal, anything at all. Even if it's just a barbecue grill at first, you'll need something to heat your metal, a piece of a piece of larger metal, and then a hammer. And that's all that's the basic setup. You can use any sort of pliers that you've got laying around, and you can start. Alright, so we've got plenty of heat in there. So I'm going to bring you over to a detail for this. Alright, can you guys see? There's a little bit extra of the front of the anvil, so let's try and center that up a little bit. Here we go, like that. That's a little bit better, and it's a bit more out of my way, so I should be able to swing or have a full swing of the hammer without fear of hitting that camera. Alright, so what we're gonna do is we're continuing on that shallow taper, creating that blunt, or that pyramidal shape for the leaf. And we're working all four sides, just like we did before. Like I said, this is a little bit of a thicker piece of material, so it takes a little bit longer to get that metal to move, and we don't get nearly as much time to work. So we're about halfway through that taper, the pyramidal shape, working all four sides. And we're going to create a nice large leaf, and then from there we're going to taper that back into a stem, and it should be a really nice looking leaf for us. So back in the fire. And I'm going to take you back to our wide shot. Hopefully it's not too terribly shaky. And then I think for this next heat, I'm actually going to leave us in the wide just so that I have a little bit of a wide shot to cut to for the editing. Like I said, 2 cameras is in the future. It's in the cards, hopefully sooner than later, but we'll see what we can do. I know for sure that there are ways that I can switch from camera to camera within Twitch, but I've got to research them and figure it out. I also got to figure out which camera that I want to get a hold of. I'd like to get something a little bit higher quality for the wide shot. Right now, my camera is kind of crappy, so I'm looking to get a little bit better quality in my next camera. Let's see. It's starting to get a little bit warm, so I think I can take off my sweatshirt. So I'll do that while we are waiting. All right. Good amount of heat. I'm gonna. And as we do, I'm taking it to the end of the edge of the anvil, and I'm using a glancing blow. So I am losing a lot of the bounce back when I do this, but I do get a nice taper in there, and I'll be able to show you guys this taper, just like that. So we've got a lot skinnier on that pyramidal shape. So I think we're ready to go for that. So what we're going to do for the next heat is we're going to bring it back a little bit further, probably to around here, and we're going to hang it off of the anvil face, and we're going to create a shelf by hitting flat on the hammer over the edge. So we're going to shove the material that's hanging off the edge downwards and creating a shelf back so that we can taper it out and make a stem. It's going to be a really, really big leaf. But that's all right, because lots of different shapes of leaves and sizes of leaves can help with precision and creativity. So once we've got that leaf all nice and blocked out, what we're actually going to do is we're going to start looking at the tapering for that hook section. And the reason we want to do that is because we don't want to be working with we're like working hard on tapering while we have a delicate leaf on the back end, because the more or like the thinner, forging or like hard forging, the more details you start losing, because every time you heat up and cool down a piece of metal, it oxidizes, and all of that oxidation, which a cold piece of metal, it's like rust. A hot piece of metal, we call it scale. So every time you heat and cool down a piece of metal, it develops more oxidation, more scale, and as you work it, the scale starts to fall off and you start losing the material. So we want to make sure that any of the small details, like the thin of the leaf and stuff, we want to keep them as thick as possible for as long as possible, so that we don't lose nearly as much material in the process of forging this. So because we have such large amounts of material, we're going to get a very broad leaf. The leaves that we've been doing are, they're pretty broad. We've been able to stretch that material quite a lot, but we've almost got double the amount of material. So we're probably gonna increase or double the width of our leaf. So we're gonna have a very broad, long leaf. And then we're also gonna have a large amount of stem that we're creating. And because we have such a thick piece that we're working, as we make it nice and thin, we will actually give it a lot of length. and that's gonna like work to our advantage. We'll be able to scroll that out and curl it around to make it look more viney. We might be able to even like wrap things around, or you know, create, maybe we'll, instead of punching or drilling our nail hole, we might actually create that nail hole by curling the stem around. A little bit of, I've made a leaf hook, and I've never made one with this thick of steel, so we're kind of learning a little bit together. So it should be a good time today. All right, we've got plenty of heat, so I'm gonna bring you over to the anvil, and we'll show you that shelving technique again. We are pretty decent on that anvil shot. Hopefully, it looks like it from the little amount I can see on the screen. Another thing I'm looking into is making sure getting a tablet or like a laptop out here so I can kind of see my stream. A major issue that I found streaming out here is that I don't really have a way to like see what you guys are seeing. I'm having a lot of trouble picking this piece up right now. Here we go. I think it'll work now. Maybe if I don't end up pushing it. Okay. Here we go. My problem is I've got like really thin area that I can put the metal in and out of the forge. So, okay. So we're bringing it back to the anvil edge. And we're carefully going to establish a shelf So we've started establishing that shelf. You can see the line forming right there. So we're going to establish that shelf on two sides. And right now, all we're really trying to do is establish that shelf line because we don't have a lot of time to work. But we got to be really careful to make sure that it's even every blow. So we're doing this really slow. And this also helps us develop our precision hammering so that we know exactly where we're hitting. And that's very, very important. That's part of the, you know, the objective of this project is to make sure that we know exactly where we're hitting every single blow. All right. And here we have established a shelf here and here. So I'm going to go back into the forge, and then when we come out again, we'll be able to squish in this material and kind of create like a shelf right there and taper this back a little bit to create sort of a stem. Like I said, we're kind of using a larger piece of material and a smaller hammer today, and part of the reason that we're using such a small hammer is I'm a little bit tired. The 3-pound hammer does take a lot of effort to use, and a 2-pound hammer is a very, very popular hammer for just that reason. It takes a lot less effort and a lot less, you know, power to swing it down and bring it back up, especially when your anvil isn't as bouncy as you'd like it to be. it's a very easy hammer to, you know, work for a really long time with. And so I'm going to use the 2-pound hammer and, you know, work my way up to using the 3-pound hammer more frequently. Let's see, what else can we talk about? I am actually going to thank people for follows today. I did this earlier, but I don't think there was any viewers. So last week we got 3 new followers that I was able to find. Stacy L. Carter, B. Brooklyn Blade, and Yankee Axe. And I want to thank you guys for following the channel. I really appreciate it. Like right now, I don't have the ability to see any of the comments that you guys leave me in the chat interface. And I do read them every time that I can, or when I'm going back through the VODs to check what happened on the stream. I always read the comments that are left, but I can't see them as we are filming. So when we start getting more comments and if we get questions and stuff, I'd like to do some videos and streams that are specifically aimed towards question and answer. I'd like to do an Ask Me Anything. Maybe I'll put it on some social media when we, you know, get our social media pages up and running. Ask me anything, I'm a blacksmith. I've also been a jeweler, so I can answer questions about that. But like I said, I can't read your comments and questions while I'm actively streaming, but at the end of the day, I read them all, and I will try to answer as many questions as I can, and thank all of the new followers and the new subscriptions and everything on the next stream, because I value your you know, viewership. And I want to make sure that you guys know that. So I thank you all for your contribution. All right. So we've got our material. It's all nice and hot, and we're going to go back to the forge. Or, I mean, to the anvil. Wow. The best part of being live. Let's see if I can't get our material out here much quicker than the last time. All right, here we go. And we are working 2 out of the 4 sides, reducing our material and creating a shelf, because what we are doing is establishing our leaf. And it looks like I've been traveling a little bit, so I need to be this is why we got to be very careful, very precise about where we're holding our material, because we definitely don't want that travel. And as you can see, I've actually started traveling the piece a little bit along the edge. I started my, right here is kind of where I started my line, and it's kind of traveled, so I've like moved the material closer towards myself as I've been hammering. That's definitely something that occurs very easily, but it's also something that you don't want to happen. So we haven't actually done all that much damage to our overall shape. So what we're going to do is we are going to actually like work hard at the precision strikes, and we started a new shelf there, or we continued the shelf that we tried to establish before. So for our next heat, we're going to continue shelving that material to establish that leaf shape. And we've got that leaf started already, but we need to like create the stem. I have 1 or 2 more heats on this particular job, and then we'll flip it around and start working on the J of this hook. like my camera holder is traveling a little bit as well, so I will definitely have to, unfortunately, I'll have to move you a little bit further when I bring you back to the anvil. Because I want to make sure that you guys can see the front of the anvil as well as the back of the anvil and the full, the full top. Because I think it's very important that you're able to see like more detailed shots of what I'm doing. It'll be a lot more pleasant in the long run to see, more informative. So my anvil is actually traveling as well. Man, everything's traveling today. So part of the fun about, or well, not fun, less fun, but part of what happens when you are hammering a piece of material is all of that force that you bring with the hammer actually is, you know, it's dissipating a little bit into the anvil itself. So, and that force that dissipates into the anvil will actually go and be drawn all the way down into the floor. And sometimes that will actually like start shifting your anvil around, and you need to make sure that it's not like moving in a place that you don't want it to move. A lot of times what will happen is like it'll start shimmying this way, especially when I'm working on the horn, and it'll start moving towards my tool racks and things, and it'll be harder to get through. This section over here, I noticed that the anvil is starting to travel that way already, because this section over here, it's a lot easier to move through. So I got to be careful on this section, because if I hit my leg with the anvil horn, it's not pleasant. That's actually why this anvil horn is blunted like this, because when you buy a brand new anvil, the horn here, it's pointed, right? It's really actually kind of sharp, and if you don't blunt it like this one, you're actually liable to like tear your clothes and into your leg. I've seen that happen on a brand new anvil that wasn't blunted. It's not pleasant. So yeah, always blunt your anvil horns. All right, we've got enough heat again. Oh wow, I have 36 viewers. Thank you all. Like I said, I am not entirely, right now I'm not able to watch all of your comments. So it looks like I've been rated, and I'm very happy about that. Thank you so much for rating. If that is what happened, but like I said, I can't actually see my comments while I am working. So on my next stream, I will 100% shout you out. So what we're doing right now is we are shelving this, we're making a leaf, very similar to this one. So this is a 1/4 inch stock, and what we've done is we've taken it to the forge and we have created a leaf. So the first step is to take it to the edge of the anvil and kind of make a pyramidal shape. And now what we're doing is we are establishing a shell so that we can actually create the stem of this leaf. So this particular piece is going to be a J-hook. So what we're doing is we're making a decorative leaf on the top, and then when we're done establishing the leaf, before we hammer it flat, we're going to turn it around and what's called taper this end so that it's it goes from the thick section to a thinner section, and then we're going to curve it and create a J shape. So right now we're going to continue working on that leaf section, the decorative part. So we are establishing the stem of the leaf so that we can curl that around and kind of make a hole for a nail to go in. So we're definitely too cold to work right now, so we're gonna go back into the forge. And then I'm gonna take you back to the wide shot. All right. Hopefully you can see the whole shop. All right, so I've got the gas forge going here. It's actually relatively warm today, so I'm able to work out here really nicely and comfortably. It does get really, really hot over by the forge. This forge gets to be about 2,500 degrees. It's really, really hot, and I mean, I can get about here before I really start feeling it. You definitely don't want to get too much closer, and that's why we have like the tongs. These are metal and they're long so that I can actually, you know, bring these in here and put them into, or put the material into that forge without burning myself. One thing that happens a lot is, you know, if you do get too close, sometimes I don't really have any hair on the back of my hand, and so, you know, that's a danger of blacksmithing. But you want to make sure that you're, you know, doing as much to, or for safety as possible. We always use the safety glasses because anytime we're using a hammer for any reason, you really should be wearing safety glasses. Because a lot of hammers, especially like your, where is my, like your claw hammers like this, they're drop forged if you buy them from the store. Like your big box store like Home Depot, Lowe's, you know, True Value, stuff like that, local stuff even too. This is the kind of hammer, you know, your claw hammer, you use these on the nails and stuff. But these are actually drop cast, and what that means is that they put molten metal into a mold, and then they kind of like hammer it a little bit, but not much. And so as the metal cools, it creates a crystalline structure. And the bad part about crystalline structure overall is that it's very brittle. So that's why you want to temper things. Like, so when you're talking about knives and stuff like that, with tool steels, they're very brittle until you temper them. And how you do that is you heat it all the way up to a specific temperature, and then you let it cool off, either using a quench tank, which I have over here. There's also oil quench, and there's air cool. So depending on what your alloy is, it depends on how, you know, quench it, cool it off. And then you heat it a little tiny bit up to like I'm going to say a straw yellow. And what I mean by that is as you are heating metal, it changes color. So you can visually see the temperature of the material that you're working with. So when you're tempering something, that you want to get that straw yellow, and that it actually creates a very strong crystalline structure and a strong bond, right? So the drop forged tools, they have a tendency to chip and break. So always wear safety glasses when you're doing them, or when you're using them. The forge in the whole shop is very loud, so I always have hearing protection because, you know, safety first and everything. So yeah, the anvil, it's very loud, it rings. I've got a couple magnets here that deaden that sound because it rings a lot louder and a lot longer when you don't have the magnetism or the magnets on here to deaden that sound. So yeah, always use safety equipment, always be very careful, very mindful in the shop. So we've got plenty of heat we have actually, you know, talked a little bit too far. Got a little bit too much heat, but that's, you could never actually have too much heat. All right, we got it. You guys can see both sides of the anvil and the horn and the pritchel. This is the pritchel right here, the square hole. Or actually, that's the hardy hole. The pritchel hole is the round one. So we are hanging the material off of the edge of so that we make that stem, or that we're starting to make that stem, right? So now we have a nice pyramid sides to kind of like I said, establish the stem. So now that we've established that, I think I'm going to actually turn this material around, and I'm going to put it in the forge in this direction. That way I can hold it like this, and we are going to create, or we're going to taper the material. So we're going to go from the 5/8 inch stock that we've got, and we're going to reduce that. And as we reduce the width and the height of this material, we will actually increase the length. So we are going to, we're lengthening it so we can curve it around and make a hook. So let's talk about dressing our anvil a little bit. When you are working in the forge, you want to keep as much heat in your material as possible when you are working with it. You want to make sure that you can hammer for as long as possible before you lose the heat and have to put it back in the forge. So a good way to retain as much heat as possible is to make sure that all of your tools that you're going to use for a particular heat are laying out easily accessible on your anvil. So my favorite, because I'm right-handed and I like my horn on the right-hand side, is to put my hammer right on top of that horn. So I can just grab that and I'm ready to go. I also will put my tongs, you know, so I can like pick up my material really easily on top of the anvil, and I like it all there so that I know exactly where it's at, and I'm not sitting around looking for where is my tool, you know? I lose a lot of heat by forgetting where I've put my tools. So I have a lot of surfaces that I can put tools that are really easily accessible. So there are times where I will use 2 sets of tongs. The tongs that I'm holding stuff and the tongs that I'm working with, or maybe I've got, or there's a set of scroll tongs, and those are like, they kind of look like needle nose tongs, right? So these are scroll tongs, and what they can do is, like, if I'm holding a piece of material, I can actually use these set of tongs to kind of curl stuff around. We might be using that a little bit when we're making that hook. So if I have a second set of tongs, I like to set them on a surface that I have over here. And then I've also got my post vise all nice and set up, so everything is within arm's reach of me, and I can just I can access everything, because I need to keep as much heat as possible so that I can work. Blacksmithing is really, really slow. When you watch video games or when you play video games, a lot of materials that you're making your swords and your armor and stuff, it takes like, you know, at max, I think like Guild Wars 2 or something, you get like multiple steps, but it only takes like 5 minutes to do a whole piece of armor, right? Well, that same piece of armor in real life can actually take weeks, sometimes months, depending on what, the amount of detail and like the individual blacksmith shop and the blacksmith themselves. So like a katana, like a 1,000-fold katana, that could take months. That's why they're so expensive. So, all right, we've got enough heat, so we're gonna go back to the anvil. But yeah, so we want to cut out as much time as we possibly can. From that process. So we want to make sure that we've got all of our materials within hand's reach. Alright, and so to start this taper, what we're going to do is we're going to actually start on the edge of the anvil. And we're going to kind of try and, we're starting very similarly to how we started that leaf. Because we kind of want to establish our, the length and, or I mean the width and the height that we are looking for. So we've got our broadest area, and right now we are working towards establishing our smallest area. And we've got a nice cherry red going on here. We are almost out of heat. So very quickly here, I will want to move from the anvil top back into the forge. All right, and so we've actually generated a little bit of length as we've been establishing this. So we've pinched in on both sides, and we've gained a little bit of length. I mean, not too much. We've probably only gained about a 1/4 inch, but I mean, that's not too bad. We've taken out about a 1/4 inch of the, both this side, the width and the height. So yeah, we end up somewhere around doubling we're looking to somewhat double the length that we're of the piece, right? So we're gonna take all of this section and add on another whole section there. So back in the fire. I hope these transitions aren't too bad. I haven't gotten too ill watching the VODs back, so I hope you guys are, you know, I hope it's okay for you guys too. I'm working on getting a second camera so I don't have to move them. I'll just be able to flick a switch and change the views. So I always have a glass of water hanging out while I am streaming, or anytime I'm blacksmithing, really. As it gets hot around the blacksmith, or around the forge, especially in the summertime when I'm doing this, I start sweating profusely. And if you don't have water around, if you don't stop to hydrate, you could actually, you know, cause yourself some problems. So always keep yourself hydrated. I'm not going to be one of those streamers that you guys need to tell to hydrate. All right. Let's see, what do I got that I can talk about? It looks like I have some scale on the forge. I can clean that off. So, and then I'll talk about why I've got scale. So, as I am heating and cooling the material, like the steel, it actually starts oxidizing. Like oxidizing is, creating rust. Out and about, when you're like, seeing rusty cars and like, pieces of old construction material and like steel, it rusts in the oxygen environment that we have here on Earth. So the forge itself is actually a relatively oxygen-rich environment, and part of that is because I need to create as much heat as possible. So in order to make fire hotter, you add oxygen to it. But the problem is that the oxygen starts to turn the metal into, or like the outside of the metal into rust. And we call that scale in blacksmithing. And as you hit the pieces of metal over the forge, that scale falls off. And it creates like little flakes of dust, or flakes and dust. And if you are working on the forge and you have a lot of flakes and dust on the anvil surface, they'll actually fly up and they can hit you in the face or in the hands. So you really want to make sure that you keep your anvil very, very clean. All right, we've got plenty of heat there. So we are gonna do our next round of forging. To continue to establish the skinniest section of this hook, of this taper. And once we've kind of established that, I think that's a pretty good height and width that we want, so we can kind of choke back a little bit on our tongs, and then we're actually going to move to the back of the anvil, and we're going to start hard forging backwards. And what that does is it ends up pushing the material forward. Alright, and we've lost a lot of our heat. We're back to a cherry red. And when we are doing this like hard forging and establishing that like we're really trying to work hard on this material, we actually want to keep as much heat as possible. So we want to like put our material back in the forge around a cherry red. So we are probably going to go back to our 3-pound hammer. So right now, today, I'm using a 2-pound rounding and forging hammer, right? So one side, I have a very round face on this hammer. So this hammer is like, it's kind of rounded shape to it. This side of the hammer has a very flat shape to it. And so it is called a forging hammer and a rounding hammer. So it is a 2-pound hammer. It's pretty easy to lift and work for long periods of time. But it doesn't quite move as fast as I want it to move today. I'd like to be able to finish this piece before I'm done streaming today. So I'm going to move up to this 3-pound cross-peen hammer. And the cross-peen hammer, it's a very nice hammer. It's got that flat surface on the front end of it, and on the back end of it we've got a very long and skinny section, and that's called the cross-peen. So we're going to start using that. The extra weight is going to help us move more material faster. Alright, I'm gonna wait and allow the material to heat up just a little bit further. We're about where I would normally pull it, but because we are really wanting to work this very fast, I'm gonna wait just a little bit longer. So yeah. Today, I'm Ray, and I stream blacksmithing. I stream Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays from 2:30 Eastern to about 4:30 Eastern. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm trying to edit the videos into something a little bit more informative and like a tutorial. I don't have much in the way of socials established right now. I do have a Facebook, but it's kind of a little bit more personal. I'd rather not dox myself just yet. So as I add more socials to this account, you'll be able to see more of my stuff, more of my art. As far as who I am and what I'm about, yeah, like I said, I'm Ray. I am a blacksmith. I've been blacksmithing for about 12 years. I went to school for sculpture. And I just fell in love with fabrication and metal and stuff. I met a blacksmith at the International Metals Museum in Memphis, Tennessee. And they taught me a lot about blacksmithing, how to do it and how to incorporate it into my sculptures. And I've never looked back. I do have a background in jewelry crafting. I worked for Signet, which is a big U.S.-based jewelry company. They own a lot of the jewelry stores in the U.S. And I used to do a lot of jewelry repair. So I've got a background there too. And I am 100% open to answering any questions about blacksmithing, about sculpture, about welding, fabrication, jewelry making. However, I can't see your comments while I'm actively streaming. So if you leave me comments, I always read them all as best I can. Any comment I can catch, I read them all, and I will answer, and as much as I possibly can within the next stream. I am eventually going to, when I have enough questions, I will do an Ask Me Anything stream, or at least a video. And I will, just answer all your questions. Anything that you've got, anything you're wondering about, I'd love to answer. So we're going to go back to the anvil. My next heat, I'll probably do as a wide shot. And part of the reason I'm going to do it as a wide shot is so you guys can see my hammer blows. Alright, and you can see I've actually started tapering all the material, and it's moving a lot faster with this 3-pound hammer. And when I'm starting to taper back this hook, I'm actually going to start going on all 4 corners, or on all 4 sides. That way I can kind of clean my material up at the same time as I'm forging it. So as we can see, we're actually starting to get a lot of taper going on. we don't have nearly as much length as I want to get, so it's going to take a few more heats to get that length out there, but we're starting to get that taper in that we want. All right, and we're going to clean off the scale. Looks like we're getting a little bit of it started bouncing up a little bit, and I want to make sure that it's not going to hit me in the hand. That's where most of my burns come from, is scale hitting me in the hand. So yeah, for this next heat, I think I'm gonna leave us on a wide shot so you guys can kind of see how how I have my posture and my hammer when I'm, forging itself. Because for a forging hammer grip is a lot different than what you would use for when you're hammering in a nail. When you're hammering in a nail, a lot of your power comes from your forearm and your elbow, and less from your fingers and your elbow, your shoulder and like your full body. So because I have such a heavy 3-pound hammer, I actually have to, put my entire body into it. I'm a little bit on the smaller side, so it helps me move the material a lot more. I can see that I have a giant comment there, and I'm going to look to see if I can actually read it. I think we're talking about schools. I went to SIUE, and I went there, and it was more, originally it was supposed to be more blacksmithing oriented, and it turns out that the blacksmithing instructor actually moved to Carbondale. So I learned a lot more about welding when I was in school, and I actually had to go to Memphis to the International Metals Museum to learn what I know about actually forging. But they were so amazing over there. Within like a couple weekends, like a week and like 2 or 3 other weekends at different times throughout a few years, I learned so much. It was amazing. So if you're really interested in blacksmithing and you're in that neighborhood, Memphis, Tennessee, look them up. They're amazing. All right, so we've got about as much heat as I'm wanting to see, and I'm gonna do my best to give you, a good show on the hammer blows. All right, and we're turning as we're going. All 4 sides. As you could tell at the end there, it was the piece, as it's cooling off, it starts to jump off of the anvil, and that's kind of how you can tell when you need to put it back in the fire. So we are at a cherry red, and that's where I really want to heat that back up. Oops. All right, so let's adjust our anvil, make sure we don't have a lot of scale. Take another drink. I'm starting to run out of water today. All right. Let's see. So yeah, the International Metals Museum in Memphis. Like I said, it's a great facility. It's actually a fully functional blacksmithing and casting shop and repair shop. They repair any metal material or any metal piece for you. They have a couple fundraisers where they do it, and they bring in metals artists from all across the world. It's an incredible program that they have. They have scholarships that you can go there and learn. They have classes all year round. In the spring, they have an iron pour and like a casting workshop that's a week long. And then they also do a blacksmithing workshop a couple months late after that, where they bring in a European artist and have them teach students and anybody who wants to come in blacksmithing techniques. And then in the fall, every year they have their repair days, and they take in repair jobs from all across the community. And they have metal artists volunteer their time to repair the pieces, and that's how they get a lot of their funding. It is a big, like, that. It's my favorite charity. Aside from a few, other pet ones, like a couple animal shelters and, a couple of other really good ones like St. Jude and stuff. All right. So I'm going to do a wide shot one more time, and after I do this, I'm going to try and discuss a little bit about about the actual grip that I'm using. We're starting to get a little bit of a jump. All right. So I'm going to go back into the forge, and I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about the grip that I'm actually using. So when you hold a nice, claw hammer, you kind of have like a nice, firm grip. You choke back on the hammer, and you kind of like a good grip. You don't want to like put your thumb on here or anything. It's kind of like a, grasping. It's a good and firm grasp, right? And a lot of your power comes from like your elbow, right? Well, with a blacksmith grip, you actually want to hold it. Most of your power for the grip itself comes from your first finger and your thumb. And you want to wrap those real nice and firmly around the hammer, right? And then you leave your 3 back fingers free. And the reason you want to do that is because you actually flip your hand as you are bringing the hammer down, and that gives you a little bit of extra power. And you want to make sure that you're using your whole body, and that actually saves your forearm, your elbow, and your shoulder. Because if you're not using your full body when you are hammering, you actually, the repetitive motion starts to like give you like tinnitus, and it starts giving you like, or not tinnitus, tennis elbow, and it starts to kind of mess with your shoulder a bit. So if you use your entire body, it actually it helps bring all of that force, and so nothing is like, no individual area or section of muscles is taking all of the strain. I know that I have an elbow brace, but part of the reason I have the elbow brace is because because of actually an injury that I got while sitting at a computer. So I need this extra brace to hold my elbow so that I don't strain it further while I'm blacksmithing. So I'm gonna bring you back to the anvil so you can see a better close-up view. Again. That way you guys can see a little bit better of, precision on how the hammer actually, lands on the material. When I'm doing a lot of these, okay, so I'm starting to see that I no longer have a square, I have a parallelogram. And when you start, when you've been blacksmithing for a long time, you start seeing these little, like, what ends up happening. And a lot of times, when I'm hammering, the way my habits, old bad habits, it kind of pulls the material over to the right side. So now I no longer have a square, I have a parallelogram. So I need to correct that before we move on. So for my next heat, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put the metal on the corner. So, and then I'm going to start hammering on the corner to kind of flatten both of the longer sides, because we have an acute angle here and an obtuse angle on that side. So by hammering these corners, I'm kind of shoving all of that material towards the left, and I can actually correct this parallelogram back into a square. As I look up at the stream, I'm starting to see you guys are talking a lot. I'm so excited to see you guys interested enough to start talking and talking to each other. Yeah, upsetting. So yeah, when you are pushing the material back in the direction that it came from, you kind of, it's called upsetting. So a lot of people, or I can take like a really skinny piece and I can actually upset it and like hit it on the edge, and it will actually thicken up the material. So yeah, it's really good for correcting mistakes that happen, and it's an inevitable that you are going to make mistakes, especially when you're new, especially when you're rusty, even when you're a professional and like what you're doing. There's always room for mistakes and learning for them. And part of live streaming is having to find creative ways to correct your mistakes. All right. Let's see if I can finish this hook before I really need to go and get more water. All right. Okay, we've got plenty of heat. We're going to actually correct that parallelogram that we have established. All right. And we're gonna look at that, and it looks like the high area is over here. All right, and now what we're gonna do is we're gonna flip it to the opposite side. And kind of even out that hammer blow. All right, so now we have 6 sides and we've corrected, for the most part, we've corrected our mistake. We're gonna go back and we're gonna square it up again. All right. And our next heat, we're gonna go back to forging that out nice and long. And we've actually given ourselves a good inch and a half of extra length by reducing and tapering out the hook. And that's exactly what we want. Now, I myself am actually I'm a little bit rusty when it comes to hand hammering. And part of the reason that I am as rusty as I am is because I've been actually using my press a lot lately. As you are, working as a professional blacksmith, you need to start, working at or producing enough at speed so that you can actually make money. And so aids to help you with your speed are always desirable. So I have a 20-ton press over here. It is a pneumatic press, and I use that to do a lot of drawing out for, tapers and stuff. To kind of speed it up, I can actually get a lot more movement per heat with the press than I can with my arm. A lot of other blacksmiths have power hammers, and that's like a machine that uses or that drops down a hammerhead or a die to hammer the material for you, and those are really good aids for a working blacksmith or someone who, is older or, has injured themselves or, needs that extra hand. Like I said, I've said before many times, when I hand hammer everything, I'm really trying to show you that you don't need fancy equipment to start blacksmithing. All you really need is a big chunk of metal, a hammer, and a way to heat your material. There are a lot of really good, really cheap forges on Amazon that you can get a hold of. They're really, really good. And you can do a lot of work just with that. And I always recommend you start very simple with as little tools as possible and really start honing in on precise hammer blows. Because if your hammer strike are all over the place, it's going to take you a lot longer to, taper things. It's you're going to end up with like weird mar marks that you don't want to happen. You want to make sure that every hammer blow is exactly where you want it. And the only way that you can learn to do that is just by continuing to forge and creating project after project. There are a lot of simple projects that you can do that will help you with your basic blacksmithing skills, and like you really need to have that solid foundation in order to, you know, do all of the fancy work that you see that the professional blacksmiths do, and like the knife makers and stuff. They've all put in that effort, put in that work to, you know, continuously get those like really simple projects in. So like leaves and hooks. I do a lot of tongs for those basic techniques. There's a lot that you can learn from the really simple projects and just repeatedly making them. They say you want to make 100 leaves and 100 hooks and 100 of every new project, like simple projects, so that you can like really grind that in and get that muscle memory in there, so that you know, you're good to go and you can get that precision in. We're going back into that taper. Alright, we're getting into that cherry red. So we're going back into the forge. So for the taper, before I put it back in the forge, I noticed that we're getting a lot of movement towards the tip and a lot less movement towards the tongs themselves, where I'm holding the piece. And that's really because when I'm holding it, or when I'm holding the piece of material in the tongs, I'm not actually hitting the piece like right next to the nose, because I don't want to accidentally hit my tong nose and kind of crimp it, or crimp the piece of material. So what I'm actually going to do for the next heat, or maybe not this next heat, but the heat after that definitely, is I'm going to change tongs, and I'm going to flip the piece so that I can actually kind of reduce the material that's like right next to the nose. And part of that is also because I always start near the tip of the piece. So by the time I get back towards the nose of the tongs, I've lost some heat, so I don't quite get as much power into those blows because I just don't have the heat. I could really use some more water. All right. So I usually only stream for about 2 hours, and part of that is because I really don't have, or I only have like the 20-pound pigs, and these are the barbecue pigs. So as I forge, they actually start freezing up on me. And I have to shut off the gas when it freezes, because when it freezes, it reduces the pressure in the tank itself, and then that reduces the pressure going through the hoses, and it can kick back into the hose, and that's a bad thing. So I try to stream for about 2 hours so that I don't have to change the tanks in the middle of the stream. I have before, because I don't like going less than 2 hours. So I'm not sure today if we will finish our hook, but we will continue the hook on Wednesday for sure if we don't finish it. But I would definitely like to finish it if I can manage it. We'll see how long I can stream for. Got a little bending going on, so I'm going to try and straighten that out as we're going. And we straightened it out a little bit. We got a little bit of straightening to go on this side. All right, and so for the next heat, I'm actually going to flip the piece around. And we've got quite a bit of meat right here that I'd like to shave down. So I've got a different set of tongs here. This is a 1/4 inch stock tong. Previously, we had a 5/8 inch tong. So this is a little bit more wiggly than I want it to be because these tongs were made for straight stock. So hopefully we'll get as much grip as we're gonna need with those. All right, so we're setting our anvil with the new tongs with our hammer, and I want to clean off the scale again. All right, cool. So as you can tell, my anvil it's damaged. This is actually a hay button anvil. And hay button anvils have a tendency to lose sections of their top plate. So this here is more of a squishy steel. A lot of times it is a, what do you call it? Yeah, it's like almost an iron. But it's a lot squishier than the tool steel top. This tool steel top is it's laminated over top of the base, and this particular anvil, there must have been like a flaw in the forge weld, and so the plate broke off at this point here. So you can kind of see like the little divots and stuff, and that's, like I said, that's because this particular section of the anvil is a lot squishier than the tool steel section over here. So when you're looking for anvils, you want to make sure, or you want to try and get one that has like a full steel plate. It's going to work a lot easier for you. But like I said, any big heavy piece of metal will do, and that's kind of why I still use this anvil. I still have a little bit of bounce back, not nearly as much as, you know, it could be if I had the full plate, but enough of a bounce back that it helps me return the anvil up. So I always say that you want to make sure that your anvil surface and your hammer are as clean and shiny bright as possible, because you actually transfer any Mars in the surface of your anvil or the hammer into your metal. There are some Mars in the section that I tend to work. They're not deep enough. I can't repair them with a good shiny hammer face. So I use it anyway. I don't use the sections that have the big deep divots in though. And you can see the scale has formed really badly on this section, and it's starting to fly off. And that's really where the scale forms, on the top of the anvil, that I have to sweep off every so often. So I gotta be really careful during times like these, because you can burn yourself. Alright, and I'm starting to get tired, I can tell, because my hammer strikes aren't quite as precise as I'd like them to be. Alright, so we have already taken down a lot of that meat there. So we're gaining a lot of length in here, so we want to take this down probably another 1/4 inch if we can manage it, and bring it down so that it tapers evenly. So we still have a little bit of a shelf there where we've got like parallel material here, and it kind of tapers back. So what we want to do is we want to kind of smooth out that transition, lengthen out this piece, and then we'll be able to finish the leaf and the stem and curve in that hook. So if we're not too, if we can get that done within the next like 15 minutes or so, I'll try. Or like if we can smooth out the transition and get the length that we're looking for within the next 15 minutes or so, I'll probably stream long enough to finish out the leaf and to curve that hook. Because I'd really like to have a full project for you guys to watch. Hopefully our forge will hold out. This is a brand new tank, so it usually takes a lot longer to freeze up than a partial tank. So this tank will go for longer than it will tomorrow. Or I mean, tomorrow or Wednesday or whenever I use this particular tank. So I would really, again, I'd like to thank you all for joining me today. It's pretty exciting. I've never actually had this many people watching my stream before. It's kind of nerve-wracking, but it's exciting at the same time. Thank everybody who was chatting, answering questions for people, talking about blacksmithing, and, joining me today. I'm hoping that there were some follows, and so when I go back to the computer, I will read all your comments and all your follows and the train, and I will, I'll write it all down, and I will, thank everyone by name, and answer as many of the questions that were left hanging as possible on Wednesday. Like I said, I stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. blacksmithing. I will be streaming a week from today on Monday, but I will not be streaming on Wednesday because that's Christmas Day. I'm not sure yet if I will be streaming on Friday or like a week from Friday, because we will be getting back from going out of town on Thursday, and I'm not sure what time we'll be back. If it's too late, I probably won't be ready to stream until that, or like the Monday after, but I will try to stream that Friday if possible. The week of New Year's, I will be streaming all week. Unless something crazy happens, I should be streaming that Monday and New Year's Day and that Friday without an issue. I don't really celebrate New Year's as hard as a lot of people do, so maybe, you know, when you're, you know, gearing up and celebrating New Year's Day, maybe you can come and take a watch. All right. Here we go. All right, we got a little bit of a twist in there, so we're gonna try and correct that while we have a little bit of a heat, or a little bit of heat going on. Still. All right, back into the fire. So yeah, we're starting to finish up for the day. We've been making a leaf J-hook. It's one of the beginner blacksmithing projects that a lot of professional blacksmiths will recommend or to start with. Gotta keep watching the steel and make sure that it's all, to make sure I can pull it when I need to. So yeah, we will probably be doing another hook on Monday. This time I think I'm going to leave the 5/8" stock in the bar, and I'm gonna try and do 1/4" stock. It's gonna be a lot quicker to make the hook. I'm hoping that we can make a couple of them. If I can't find any 1/4" stock, we might actually do an S-hook. S-hooks are a lot simpler. They're like the basic project. So we'll try and do some of those maybe. Maybe some leaves, and we'll see what we can do there. The leaves that I'm making, or like, yeah, the leaves that we're making, they make good holly leaves. You can group them together in a couple different configurations. So maybe we'll do something like that. We might, you know, make like a mistletoe or something. So that might be fun. All right. Whoops. Let's try not to hit my stand and make it shake. All right. We've made a decent amount of progress on this, and I'm pretty happy with it. And we're now getting to this point where I think I'm going to start working more on the leaf section itself. We've kind of matched where we've got the shouldering in there. So I think I really want to start working at thinning that in and re-establishing that. So that's going to be our next heat. We're going to start re-establishing that in. We've got a little bit of a weird section there, and I think that developed when we were correcting the parallelogram shape. So we'll try and fix that. I guess we don't really need to fix that because we're actually going to start hitting down specifically on that corner to create the leaf. What we're going to do is we're going to like hit this corner, and there's all this material here in between there, and we're going to kind of draw it out and push the material both left and right. Get that nice heart leaf shape. We're almost where we want to be. So I'm probably going to try and get as far as I can today. Because my goal is to create projects that, or conceive of projects that I can do the full thing in the 2-hour section of time. I would really like you to be able to come in and watch me, start a project and finish it in the same day. Multiple day projects, they're great, but I really want you to be able to see a full piece come to fruition. So we're starting on these like smaller sections or smaller beginner projects. So in the new year, I've got several projects in mind that we're going to probably try and do. I would like to make a set of silverware. I've got some stainless steel stock, and then we're going to try and make a fork, a knife, and a spoon, all within the new year. I'd like to try my hand at doing some nails, but I've got to figure out, or I've got to make a nail header. I don't have one of those. I might actually be able to buy one, but I'd also like to, it might be better if we made one. So I've got some thicker pieces of stock. I might just be able to drill a hole in them and create one. We'll see what I can get done for that particular project. And we'll be able to make a lot of nails. And that is a project that is very beginner blacksmith. Back in, the time when blacksmiths were much more common, they would actually assign their apprentices 100 nails every day, 100 penny nails. And they'd finish that project, and then they'd help their master with everything, or with all of the big projects. All right. Nails were always a good way for blacksmiths to